Oops, I think this might be the best thing I've ever made. Honestly, this video wasn't part of my plan. But when AlgoLaser reached out to me, upped my ego a little bit and told me I was going to be one of the first creators in the world to review their new 40-watt laser, well, I just couldn't say no. As well as Warhammer and mini painting, one of my all-time loves is playing board games. And one of my favourites is Settlers of Catan. And so to put the AlgoLaser Delta 40 watt to the test, I made a Settlers of Catan Ultimate Edition. Little did I know, it would turn into one of my biggest projects ever. Above all else, I want this board to be playable. I want something that my family is still going to be using in 20 years' time. That means everything needs designed from scratch, and, shock horror, I don't get it right first time, so we're going to need some prototypes too. And if you're not familiar with Catan, this is Catan. There's 6 edge pieces, 19 hex tiles, 4 building cost cards, 20 settlements, 16 cities, 60 wooden roads, 18 number totems, 2 dice, oh, and a box to put it in. If you buy the set, new, it costs about $40. Remember that price, it might be relevant later. So I need to design all the elements. Wheat, sheep, bricks, stone, and wood. Wood. We'll circle back to these, but first I want to talk about the tech. You know what though, once you get past all the bells and whistles of the Kickstarter, it really comes down to one question. What's the difference between my 22-watt alpha laser and a 40-watt delta laser? Should you buy one, and does it even matter? The answer is, maybe, and let me show you. This is less glitzy, but more useful. This is a material test. This is the speed, this is the power. Basically what that shows is, cutting at a speed of 10mm, anything above 50% power will cut through 3mm laser MDF, anything below that won't, and in fact anything above 10mm a second is basically an engraving setting on this laser. Compare that to the test I ran on a 40-watt laser, which uses exactly the same settings, and you can see that the 40-watt laser will cut through anything all the way down to 30% power, and all the engraving above that line is much stronger. Can you still use a 20-watt laser? Absolutely you can, it just takes a little bit longer. Do you need it? Well, that's a decision for you. Let's start with the box. To do that, we head over to my favourite laser cutting site, boxes.py. It's linked down below. All I needed to do was find a box design that I liked. In this case, I chose one with a pull-out drawer, tap in my dimensions, 300 by 320mm, and download the files. Once you've got all the files you need, it's just a case of arranging them in your software to make sure you're not wasting loads of material. In my case, I ended up using 3 sheets of 3mm laser ply. I managed to lift a copy of the Catan logo using my internet fairies, drag them into Lightburn, a quick image trace, and I've got something I can cut, or in this case, engrave. To take it one more step up, I added a hexagon pattern which I just found as a free vector online, and popped that over the top. I really think this lifts the box and it's gonna look wicked. I'm going to make these files available to people over on my Discord, so if you want to pop over there and grab them, the links are all down below. You don't have to, but I would appreciate if you could buy me a coffee to say thanks for all the hard work though. You can do that via my Patreon links. And if you care about this stuff, and you probably should, the cutting deck on this thing is 425 by 415mm. Even though this thing is packed full of safety features like shielding for the laser, emergency stops, flame detection sensors, it's still important to have really good ventilation and always wear goggles. For God's sake, always wear goggles, particularly when you're using uncovered lasers like this one. With that said, how pretty does that look? We're probably about an hour and a half of cutting time and I am properly excited by how this thing looks. Before we paint it, obviously we're going to need to clean up all the scorch marks, but you can actually just use white vinegar to do that. And then we're going to need to seal it, probably with some sort of watered down PVA mix, just to make sure the paint doesn't immediately soak into the wood. This is going to look so good. I knew I wanted to keep it close to the Catan colours, so I did a bit of colour testing and then popped on some paint. We're going to make it one step better though, so stick around for that. Listen, I was pretty set about the design of the thing, it was just about executing it perfectly, and that meant essentially making everything once as a rough draft and then assembling it all and using it and just trying it and seeing what worked. Prototyping, I guess. The way I did this, I just literally made a rough copy of everything and then invited some friends round, assembled it all, played with it, and just saw what worked and what didn't, and then got in other people's ideas. It was really fun, but it took ages, 2, maybe even 3 weeks in the end. But by the end, I had something workable. I think my favourite bit of prototyping was this one with my daughter though. I'm not sure about you, but I think she absolutely nailed the brief. The first draft was this thing. It's pretty basic, it's just a shape cut into a piece of 3mm laser ply. The little holes are for magnets, because I figured that's how they would set together. This ends up being a cool but basically irrelevant feature, but we're sort of committed at this point and I don't end up backing out until right at the end of the project, so oh well, there you go, hey, lesson learned. And obviously this looks a little bit ropey. I try and refine this a little bit, and at first I thought, I know, I'll top it with resin. That's what that looked like. It's not very impressive, and as you can see from the reflections, it's not very even, there's bubbling all over the place, so I quickly abandoned that as an idea. I was, however, quite impressed by how easy the resin was to apply. All I used was this stuff from Green Stuff World and a UV torch. To hold the resin in, I made this hexagonal overlay, which also doubles up as something to retain the magnets. The only thing I needed to do now was find a backing piece. Initially, I tried another 3mm piece of laser ply, but it's just too thick and clunky and I didn't like it. The whole point is this game has to be usable and tactile, otherwise I'll just hate it and I'll end up using the original instead. Eventually I settled on making these things out of, I don't know, plastic? They're significantly thinner and they do the job absolutely perfectly. This meant running off another material test, and if you want to see that, it's just on the screen now. I'll pop a link to all the materials I used down in the description below. Alongside all that, I mocked up designs for the building cards, longest roads, largest armies. These ones didn't engrave quite as deep as I wanted to, so I ended up remaking them, but you get the idea. To make the images is actually pretty simple. All you do is find some images files online that you like, save them as a PNG or a vector file, and then you can drag them straight into Lightburn. Once you drag them into Lightburn, right-click them and click Trace Image. Once you trace the image, you can see the pink line that runs all the way around the outside of everything, and those are the lines that are going to be cut. And now you've got something that you can cut around. It's that simple. By far and away my favourite things to make though were the number tiles. These were really simple, just round discs, with the numbers laser etched in the top. And just like the real Catan game, the number of dots denote the probability of them being rolled in the game. The real piece de resistance with this thing though is the resin cap, which actually worked here and ended up with a lovely smooth coat, which is nice and hard and just looks absolutely fantastic. For the final version I ended up painting these as well, but I'm not sure that the wooden version doesn't look better anyway. And because of these, that's why I added these round circles in the middle of the tile. They just help to retain it in the game, which is a lovely tactile thing that I really enjoy. It's probably my favourite piece of the design of the whole board. Now all we need to do, I say need, we don't need to do anything, but we've got an $1,800 laser to play with and we may as well do something interesting. All we need to do is make everything else. That's roads, tiles, tokens, counters, settlements, you name it, everything else. But we've got all the graphics laid out and we know how easy it is, so it's just a case of grinding through it. This whole process took 4 or 5 hours, but I've sped it up 8,000% so you don't have to sit there that long. You're welcome. And at the end of the process, this is what we're left with. It all turned out pretty good. This is the part of the video I'm supposed to ask you to like and subscribe, but instead of doing that, I'm going to give you some behind the scenes info. While I do that, I'm going to run through the final stages of the build, the painting, and the final touch to the box, which really lifts it to the next level. And you'll see that in the big reveal at the end. Thank you so much for watching this video right to the end, and particular thanks if you're a member of my Discord and participate, or support me on Patreon. You know who you are, you're all legends. Thank you. So this video is clearly sponsored by AlgoLaser. If you're not familiar with YouTube sponsorships and product placements, wait, stop! I've just realised I haven't told you about the magnets. I found these really amazing little round 3mm magnets. The cool thing about using balls is they can rotate to being any polarity you need to, which is why the holes are so important. Sorry, that's a major part of how these things stick together, and I hadn't mentioned it before, so sorry about that. Back to the montage. And why should you be? Then let me just quickly break it down for you. Lots of companies reach out to me these days and offer me products, and sometimes I say yes and sometimes I say no. Most of the time I say yes, because who doesn't like free stuff? But also because I like trying new gear, and that's kind of what this whole thing is about. Every now and again though, you find a real gem of a company that's just great to work with, and AlgoLaser is one of them. Occasionally companies ask me to say something really specific when I'm reviewing their videos, and they get a blanket no. That's not what this is about. When I make a video, I want to give an honest feedback, because at the end of the day, you can always buy products, but you can't buy subscribers or trust. The best companies though are confident about their products, and they send you stuff with no expectations for you to make videos about and just give honest feedback because they believe in their products. And the very best companies reimburse creators for their time properly. Let me give you an example. AlgoLaser reached out to me and said, how much would you charge to make a video for our upcoming Kickstarter? I gave them a price, and they came back to me and said, actually that doesn't seem very fair. Let me pay you this instead. And they paid me a larger amount, which absolutely blew me away. And not only does that make me want to deliver a better video for them, but also gives me a bit of faith in humanity as well, you know? As a smaller creator, that's pretty much unheard of, so I just want to give them a shout out and kudos for that. So I'm a big fan of AlgoLaser, and that inherently makes me a bit biased, but I just want to make it absolutely clear that there was no editorial oversight over this video. All the views and opinions are my own. In fact, they said, go and make whatever you want to. I'm just excited to see the video you're going to make. Nice. So now you know a little bit more about how the back end of this sort of stuff works. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Back to the video. Have you worked out what's going on here yet? Yep, that's right, I'm applying gold leaf. Because nothing says Catan Ultimate Edition more than gold. 24 karat gold leaf applied straight over the top of, essentially it's a watered down PVA mix. Actually the stuff I used is Stick by Stuart Semple, but there's various different types of gilding adhesives you can buy too. Either way, no matter what you use, apply it, let it go touch dry, and then just very gently brush your gold leaf over the top. The hardest thing about applying gold leaf is making sure the gold leaf just doesn't crumple into a million pieces. But even if that happens, literally just jab it into all the gaps and go over it with a brush and dust it all away. It works amazingly, and I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Let me know in the comments below if you agree. As we say in the UK, the proof of the pudding though is in the eating. And this game was a lot of fun to play. There's still a few improvements and tweaks I'd like to make, but for now I can't stand looking at Catan for a little while, so I'll come back to those at some point. For now though, I am super happy. Thank you so much for watching, and can you guess how much this thing cost in the end? I'll pop the answer in the video description below. And as you're passing over that with your cursor, perhaps you can give the video a like too? Thanks so much. I'll leave you with the glamour shots right at the end, and thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it.